Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Sunday's Coming podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Caleb.
Caleb, yeah, hello, as always.
And I'm also Caleb, and we are joined today by Dan and Abigail Dominguez. Thank you guys for making the trek out on a very cold Chicago day to be here.
We are so happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I met you, Dan. I don't know if we met when I was out there. I think it was very early on me. Maybe it was in the winter. I don't remember when it was exactly because I remember it being cold, and we were like, "Oh, we need to unload. We need to unload the trailer." And I was like, "Oh, great! I forgot to bring my gloves."
I did not sign up for this.
And I think it was maybe it was a worship night or something like that. That Jeff was like, "Oh, hey, can you come out and just do something?" And I, being able to see the space, and we live like maybe 10, 15 minutes from there, maybe a little bit farther, maybe 20 minutes. And I had never been to, what's it called? The center?
Yeah, the center.
Where you guys meet? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is a really nice place.
It's
a great space.
Like it's a really, I'm surprised there's, Elgin is not always the greatest part of Illinois and or Chicagoland.
Well, we beg to differ.
I was going to say.
You guys do.
We love our city.
And it's so funny. One of the questions I was going to ask you guys, and we'll get to this, but yeah, Elgin is just such a unique place.
Yeah,
it really
is. It's awesome.
And I think of it like as I was driving there, I remember I passed this. I don't know what it was called. This old diner, like really semi close to the center. And years ago, my mom's side grew up like all in the Elgin area. Like Shales Parkway is like one of my great uncles or something like that. And I remember like my great grandma being in this nursing home, like was really, really close to the center. And I was just a kid. I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm at the same place. I called my mom on the way home and I'm like, is this like where it was? She's like, yeah, that's it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. So that's my story of the center
Elgin story.
and my Elgin story.
I love it.
But anyways, you guys are fantastic, and I'm super excited to kind of start this conversation. You guys are church planners.
Yes.
We don't have a ton of that on the show, or haven't yet, and you guys bring a very unique perspective, I think, to ministry, to starting something that's really hard and figuring out how to do it and continue to grow. So I think like as we're kind of kicking off, like introduce who you guys are, your story just a little bit, and we'll just kind of figure out where it goes from there.
Why don't you start us off?
Love it. Okay, well, we the current church that we're at is Hope Culture Church in Elgin, but it kind of starts a lot earlier than that. We met each other. Dan and I met at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, so that's where we went to school. And we were actually both kind of not looking for someone. They call it Moody Bridal Institute because everyone goes there to get married. We were so adverse to that. But we sat across the table from each other and had so much in common and had such a heart for ministry. And that's honestly where it started for us. We were friends, got engaged. And during our engagement, church planning just kind of came up in conversation for us a lot. And that was something we kind of tucked away that we would maybe do down the road when we had lots of experience and we had all this wisdom, right? And we got married in July 2012, and right after we got married, we randomly got connected with this pastor who was about to plant a church.
Okay.
And so Dan was actually interviewing for other like real ministry jobs that could pay the bills.
That actually paid money.
Right.
Yeah. And I was finishing out school. We just felt this really, call, if you will, like just this, we were compelled to go help start this church. So we both got other jobs to pay the bills and just volunteered at this church plant at the beginning. And man, we just saw God do incredible things through that time. We ended up being there for 7 years on staff in so many different roles.
That's
learned
awesome.
So much because our pastor allowed us to really have our hands in everything.
That's
and
so cool.
We knew it was in our heart to plant a church again. It's just a matter of kind of when. And so, yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I think one of the things too that was so compelling about church planning is we heard this statistic early on when we were engaged that church planning was the number one way that people were coming to Christ in America.
Yeah.
And so for us, we're like, man, if we really just want to help people know the gospel, hear the good news of Jesus.
Yeah.
Like church planting seems to be the way to do that. So
right.
we're like, do you want to be broken in love?
Yes.
Forever.
Forever. Let's do it. A lot of people, push back, like, we don't need any more churches. There's so many churches. Why another church? Yeah. And we were just hearing some statistics actually about how many churches are closing, how many churches we need to even to kill the deficit. And so like maybe there's even someone listening that's like interested in church planting, or like maybe that's in their heart. And I would just say we need more healthy churches. There are so many communities that are in lack there. And so, we're passionate about it. It's kind of our, the thing we've committed our life to. So
that's awesome. Yeah. It's, was the church plant that you guys went to first, like, was that the pastor's first plant as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were all figuring it out together. They had gone through some training, similar training that we've gone through and now help facilitate. But it was a lot of like, let's figure this out as we go, which was really fun. And, kind of like Abigail was saying, like allowed us to get so much hands-on experience that we went into planting Hope Culture Church knowing exactly what we were signing up for.
Well, I want to hear more about that because, I'm sure you experienced in those 7 years things that you thought were really awesome. Like, we definitely want to replicate this. Things you're like, I'm going to do this totally differently whenever the time comes for us to launch a church. Like, what were some of the key, like, high-level takeaways that you brought to Hope Culture from your time at the first church?
Yeah. I think with a church plant, one of the things that is essential is having a strong volunteer team. Especially we started the first plant that we were part of was portable for a season, then got a building. And we saw what happened when we got into a building, that the volunteerism went down significantly, and it was hard to keep people motivated. I think because the necessity for volunteers goes down when you have some establishment. And so for us, even though we're portable now in Hope Culture, a building I'm sure is in our future someday, but we want to create this kind of culture inside of our church that helps people find their purpose and really live out their mission inside of the church and outside of the church. And so how we take care of volunteers matters a lot. How we talk about volunteering, how we structure our volunteer scheduling, even if we want to get really in the weeds, is very intentional for us. And so that's something that we learned from our past church plan experience.
Yeah. That's interesting because when you think about it like that and going, hey, volunteer, the culture because of necessity goes down when you get a building. Right. Like, I've heard that before of church planners that have gotten into a building finally. They raised the funds, they found the building, they got in, launch weekend, everybody's happy. And then, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks later, you're like, oh man, it's easier for people to not show up at 5 a.m. anymore to unload a trailer because of the necessity of actually having church or without it. And that, like, how, I guess in that context, like, how did you guys, deal with that and like help rally volunteers to like keep wanting to serve and keep wanting to do that? Because that if you have that culture and then you all of a sudden that goes away very quickly, like, that can be detrimental to so many things.
Yeah, I think culture follows what you focus on a lot of times. And I think there's a natural shift in a lot of people in leadership when they move to a new building, their focus shifts. And so it's natural that the culture changes. And I think in order to not lose it, you have to stay focused on it. Like, you have to know this is a priority for us. Volunteering is something we see as like people using their gifts and being part of the body. And so it's essential. And so I think with that, choosing what you measure. So for us, even now, and this is something we'll carry forward forever, is like one of the main things we want to know every Sunday is how many people served. That's like the first, anybody in leadership is evaluating all of the different metrics. But for us, that's like our core metric because like it's an indicator of everything else. It's like showing people love the church, they're bought into the church. Everything else follows that. So instead of like having that be one of the outflows, that's like our focus. And so I think if you're able to carry that into the future, you can keep that the focus by saying, well, in order to grow that number, I just need to create more opportunities. Because really, I think people want to be a part. Like, I think that's one of the shifts in church culture is that like people want to be a part of their local church. And like young people especially don't want to go somewhere where they feel like they have no voice and they have no influence because they feel like really disenfranchised with that of like, well, like it's great. Maybe I'll receive something for a season and then I'm kind of like done. But if I'm actually a part of it, like there's longevity there. So
with the church plant that you're at currently, building this, volunteer team at Hope Culture, what are some of the things that you're doing intentionally to create that exact kind of experience that you're describing here, where it's something that people want to be a part of? It's a volunteer experience that is inviting and welcoming and energizing and, gets them plugged into something that's sustainable for the long term and not something that's like a short burst or burns out or things like that. Because in any setup teardown scenario, that's obviously a risk that you're always managing is just burnout. It's always the same volunteers showing up at 5 a.m. to do the thing. And like, how do you kind of help protect them and, grow that team in a way that's sustainable?
Yeah, love that.
We both have a lot of thoughts. You want to go first?
Yeah. I think we started this church for people, to reach people with the hope of Jesus. And it can't just be people who are outside of the church. It has to be caring for the people that are on our volunteer teams. And so we feel like it's our jobs as pastors, also our staff's job to care and pastor our teams. And so we found that if we are truly caring for the people who are serving in our church, that there is longevity there. We also try not to have everyone serve every single week. Hardly anyone in our church serves every single Sunday. There's a great rotation happening. We encourage people to serve like every other Sunday or maybe once a month. And that's huge. I think people have time to volunteer. I think people make time for what's important to them.
Totally.
Like you see parents, they're making time for their kids' practices, that basketball game, that party. When we choose to communicate the mission to our volunteers and we share stories and we celebrate constantly what God is doing in our church, then they make time because they're like, I need to be a part of this. I want to be a part of something that's bigger than myself. I want to be a part of making a difference in our community. And so that keeps passion alive. And so every single Sunday we have this team huddle where we circle up and we share a story. We talk about a cultural value, and we kind of rally together and say, this is not an ordinary Sunday. Let's see what God's going to do today.
Yeah.
And I think that brings excitement and energy to our volunteers.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it when you were talking about how volunteers want something that's bigger than themselves and like something to be a part of. And so for us, we use that language of like, be a part of what God's doing. Like we're not pressure, but we're always invitation. Like come be a part of this. Like we're going to, as a church, move at the speed of like the people that God's surrounded us with. And so people like that because then when they feel ready, they're like, okay, I'm making this decision. And then a big thing we're talking about with all of our crew leaders, like our teams are all called crews, is just like love them well. Like Abigail was saying, like they aren't used for the mission, like they are equally part of the mission.
Yeah,
like
cool.
We're like pastoring and loving our volunteers. So texting them regularly, checking in. We also, for us, appreciation is huge. And so we try to do that in so many different forms of like verbal, like our crew leaders send out postcards from time to time.
Awesome.
We do a yearly like big party for all of our volunteers where we just love on them, celebrate. They celebrate each other. They like nominate
cool.
each other for awards. And like, so we have this culture of like honoring one another because that's like what we're supposed to do. Like the body, like Paul in his illustration of the body is like, no part's more or less honorable. Like you're supposed to be showing honor to all. So like we try to emphasize the parts that naturally get less honor and point it out and make it a big deal.
And we have a lot of fun. Like we have a lot of fun. I've never heard anyone complain as they're unloading the trailer when it's negative temperatures. Like unreal. I've never heard anyone complain about.
Not
Dan
a lot.
complains sometimes. Dan complains.
And so like, I think that's an essential part. Like you have to have some fun. There has to be team camaraderie. Like we don't take ourselves too seriously. We take the mission serious. We take the gospel of Jesus seriously, but we don't take ourselves too serious. And so there's kind of this family, authentic, laid back atmosphere. And I think we want to create a fun atmosphere for our volunteers. So they're not like waking up on a Sunday morning, absolutely dreading driving there at 6 a.m. Like we want them to be excited about like, hey, I'm going to serve alongside my friends. We're going to laugh. We're going to have loud music playing, all the things. So yeah, we're having a good time.
That's awesome.
I think the only other thing I would add, just one last thought on that, is connecting what they're doing to life change. I mean, Abigail kind of alluded to it of like in our huddle, celebrating those stories. But the more you can draw a straight line from what somebody's doing to the why we're doing it, the more value they see in it.
Yeah.
So even for our guys who are going around and just setting up banners and signs all throughout the building, we're like, somebody showed up because they saw that banner and like they got baptized like 6 weeks later or whatever that story is, and being like, what you're doing actually is leading to life change. And so I think that's huge.
I love what you were saying about like people make time for the things that are important. And I think it's easy. Yeah, I think in ministry staff, I've said it on different episodes of like, I have this perspective that like I'm full-time at the church. I'm busy. Yeah. I have 3 kids. I have baseball practices and softball and all of the things. And I don't want to go volunteer somewhere. So why would somebody else want to? And it was hindering my ask to ask people to be a part of that, and realizing that like, this is actually something that people want to be a part of. And the community that's built around that is what keeps them long-term. Yes. And I love you guys like saying that and hearing that, because I saw even just like micro snippets of that when I was there, and seeing these people that I'm like, oh, these are very bought-in people that have done, they number one, know what to do because they do it every week, or they've done it a ton, and they're doing it with people that they like, which is so good.
Right. Yeah, so important.
Yeah.
We tell our staff too, don't say no for your volunteers. Like a lot of times, like you're saying, we kind of say no for people, like they're too busy.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to be asked. A lot of people are like, hey, why isn't anyone tapping on my shoulder?
Yes.
I'm sitting in these seats. I have these gifts. I see something that maybe no one else is seeing. And so we try to not say no for people. But we're, like Dan said, we're not high pressure. We just create opportunities to serve. So we like have this class that you can attend, Serve 101, come learn about what serving is. But if you're saying no for your volunteers, I think you're underutilizing them, and they'll say no to you if they want to. So
they're just fine saying no.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
Especially the stronger the relationship, which goes back to like viewing them as people and not just a resource to be used. Like if you can really know them and love them and check in on them, they'll tell you yes or no, and they'll tell you why. And the more you can be in relationship, the stronger your teams will be.
Yeah.
I also love what you were saying, Dan, about like that the mission is you and like what you're doing. It's not the act of you serving in kids ministry to serve the kids that are in there. Like that's obviously a part of that, but you serving in this community, being able to set up and build relationships with the people around you, like that's what we're doing. And like I don't think like that enough, and I love that perspective, because I think it's like it's so much more than just the task that you're doing to serve something else. It's like, no, like this is the reason why we're doing it. And it's to be here to set up, even if no kids show up on Sunday morning. It's like we still made an impact for this community because you were all here, being a part of that, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, we talked obviously a lot about volunteers, but like maybe zoom out a little bit and like, what is the culture? What is the community, like the Elgin neighborhoods that you're serving? Like, tell us about the unique situation that your church finds itself in, as far as the needs you see, the people you interact with, who's coming through the doors, and like what you're learning as far as the mission of the church in the context of those people.
Yeah, love that. Elgin is, we love our city. We honestly, when we were praying about where we should church plant, we told the Lord, we'll go anywhere in the United States of America. Like we were so open to planting anywhere. And Elgin is actually where Dan grew up. It's his hometown. And both of us, as we were praying, were just like, it felt just such a burden for our city, like the city he grew up in. And so we are, a little bit biased towards it. We just have a love for it. There's a lot of unique things about Elgin. It's called a city in the suburbs, so it has kind of that urban feel, even though it's in the Chicago suburbs. I think some of the history of it is that it was a city even before Chicago was a city. Is that right? Like
around the same time.
And,
before any suburbs existed.
Yeah, and then of course tons of suburbs have grown around it. But Elgin is unique. There are so many young people, young professionals who move to Elgin because I think the housing is a little cheaper to live.
Yeah,
it's cheaper to live there.
So we have an incredible amount of young adults who are maybe new in their careers. But Elgin's also extremely diverse. We have people from just every kind of background, every ethnicity. We have every socioeconomic. We have just every type of person, I feel like, in our city. And our church reflects that, which is really fun. Everyone plants a church and wants to have like this super diverse church.
Yep.
And we just want to reflect our city. Like we want to look like Elgin, and we do, and we love that. We're reaching people from all over the suburbs, but we are in Elgin. And so, yeah, we do love it.
Yeah, I love how diverse our church is. I mean, we've got the homeless person in the same row as the CEO, and we've got like every form of diversity that you can think of. And I think that's been, a challenge at times to like foster what does it look like to have real unity and not just like a pseudo unity.
Yeah.
But it's led to really good conversations. And like, I think our church is at such a good place right now where it's like, no, I love these people that are different than me. And I've grown because iron sharpens iron differently with different people. And so it's been really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's I can't remember where I was. I remember telling Jeff Flickama, like somewhere maybe in Algonquin, I was like at a Target and I saw somebody with I think it was a volunteer shirt or something like that he had. I'm like, why does that look so familiar? I'm like, oh yeah.
That's great.
And yeah, it's so interesting because I think the suburbs of just that area, like there's a lot of churches and there's a lot of like very established long-term churches, and then there's a lot of like younger church plants that I've seen, even like one that pops up in my neighborhood that meets in the school in our neighborhood. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that because I'm typically at church and on a Sunday morning, and I didn't even know that they met there until I drove by it early, and I was like, oh, there's a flag. I think there's a church that meets in there.
That's cool. That's awesome.
But I think the uniqueness of the area that you guys are in, I think is it speaks volumes to the community of that, because I see Elgin as this I don't know, it feels like it's up and coming again, where it was very, like when I was just mentioning, like my grandma grew up in Elgin. It was like it was popping back in whatever that was, and then things went downhill very, very quickly. And now it's like there's rebuilding. There's cool coffee shops. There's a cool downtown area. There's like all of these things that are kind of coming up, and I love that. Yeah, I think for you guys and just the community that's like being built around in an area that you wouldn't expect and that you would expect closer to the city.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Awesome.
What are some of the things that you guys have learned from that sort of tension? You mentioned the CEO and the homeless person in the same row. Like what are some of the things that have bubbled up in the community that have been just, challenging or, eye-opening for people that have, had to engage with those different relationships?
Yeah, I think we cast a lot of vision for it. If you're a person who's coming to church just to be super comfortable, it might be a little more challenging. Hope Culture Church, you might be sitting next to somebody who hasn't taken a shower in a few days, and like there is that real community sense in our church where there's people coming from all walks of life. Not only walks of life though, also lots of different background when it comes to faith, and so. You might be sitting next to someone who doesn't believe the same thing as you. And we think the beauty of a church plant is like, hey, let's come together and let's talk about Jesus and walk this journey together. I think for some it is uncomfortable, and we love to just push on that a little bit. Like, hey, why is that uncomfortable for you? Let's talk about that through the lens of Scripture, and let's dive a little deeper what's underneath that. And I think that there's been a lot of growth for those who are willing to grow there and see that person sitting next to me as a part of the family of God, and my brother and sister in Christ. And so Yeah, I think that's what I would say. What would you add?
Yeah, I think it causes people to think, wait, why do I think this way about that thing? Maybe I've never heard another perspective on it, or whatever it might be, whether that's like a political issue or a theological issue or any of those things, or just like, why am I so uncomfortable in this situation? Or like, we'll sing a chorus in Spanish sometimes, and like the like where it's loud in the room changes. Like it's really
so
fun just to see. But like for us, it's like we want to be known by what we're for more than what we're against, and we want people to know where we're headed. Our mission is helping people find hope and take their next step in following Jesus. And so we're very clear when we talk about that every Sunday. Everybody's at a very different spot in following Jesus. Like we have people here who don't even know if they follow him yet, and we have people who've been following him for decades and know him well. I'm like, but our goal is that you take your next step, whatever that looks like for you. And so if we can create a vision and a picture for people of we're moving in the same direction, we don't have to be at the same place on everything yet, I think is how people slowly learn to like love their neighbor and love the person that they're sitting near, and see that God's working in their life too, and maybe in a different order of things, or maybe in a way that they wouldn't have expected, but God is still moving and speaking to them.
Yeah. As I imagine the leaders in your community that are having to have those challenging conversations to kind of help people take steps and maybe engage with perspectives that they haven't before, like that's something that any leaders listening have to do in some context, right? Kind of guide someone through a tough conversation, or take some feedback or criticism and help navigate through that to, find a path forward. Like what are some of the things that you just learned walking through the conversations as leaders about how to approach someone that maybe is uncomfortable, or, has questions, or isn't really happy with how things are going, or, whatever that might look like, whether it's, the volume on Sunday or the direction of the ministry, they could be equally invested in their point of view on what it should be. So I don't know, like, what has that been like as leaders to navigate, just all of the things that come up in church ministry when you have such a diverse, different set of backgrounds?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I think we're still learning and figuring it out. But what we do know is that like listening is a huge part. People don't want to hear what you have to say until they feel like you heard what they said. So for any leader out there, like hearing what that volunteer is communicating, what that person is saying, like, and understanding their heart behind it goes so far. It's always more than the words. If somebody's upset, there's an emotion attached to it.
For sure.
So knowing like, okay, what is that thing that is making you feel that? Not just the surface level of it, but there's probably something else behind it. And then just going to like figuring out, is this something we can agree to disagree, or is this something that like we can go to scripture on, or is this a longer conversation, or whatever that looks like, letting that person know, like, I love you enough to be committed to this conversation for as long as it takes, whether that's going to be, we're going to sit here this afternoon and figure it out, or it's like, let's spend an afternoon together for the next few months talking about this thing, or whatever that looks like. And sometimes it goes really well and sometimes it doesn't. I think there's a reason Paul says, do everything you can to live at peace with everybody, because you can only do so much, but make sure you're doing your part.
Yeah, I think as leaders, we have to be free from people pleasing and trying to make decisions that will make everyone happy. The very nature of what we're doing means that there will be some people who are not thrilled. Like every decision we make, there's people on all sides. And so something that Dan and I have always come back to is like we just have to be so obedient to what God is doing. And then a lot of times in those conversations, we just bring up what our mission is and what we feel God is leading us to, and just invite them in. Like, do you want to be a part of that? Because this conversation is maybe adjacent to like the main thing. And we do, like Dan said, want to be known for what we're for more than what we're against. And so, hey, are you willing to come on with us and before this thing, before making Jesus famous in our city? And a lot of times when we invite people in, they're willing to set some of those things aside to keep the main things. And so that's one of our that's some of our language around that. So yeah,
that's cool. As you guys were talking, I was just thinking like for any of the listeners, and even just like the way that I've kind of viewed church plants and have wondered as you guys continue to grow, because you're you've laid a great foundation of where you are as a church, but like that foundation will, what does that foundation eventually build to in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years? And I see a lot of, whether it's church plants or younger churches that are trying to emulate what every other big church is doing, or that they have to do blank, they have to live stream, they have to whatever that thing is, because that's the expectation of whatever they're seeing happen. And I think that is a really hard way to try to plant a church and to try to just like do whatever the bigger guy is doing. Have you guys seen, I don't know if it's volunteers or a trend to go, oh yeah, we don't, or we have seen these things work, or we're going to take the things that work out of a large culture or large church context and bring that into what you're doing? Because there's, Caleb and I were talking before you guys showed up, and we were just talking about like the amount of resources that is out there today for church planners compared to 15, 20 years ago is like vastly different. And there's networks and huge organizations that help launch churches and help do that stuff, and they set them up really well. But I just wonder, even just personally, like that foundation, as you build that, like how do you, like where do you see that trajectory going? Because everything that you're building on will eventually get, every small church was, or every mega church was eventually a church plant at some time. It's like, and it's like, and and people have different directions of where they want to go or don't want to go. And I just wondered how you guys kind of process that.
Yeah, I think everybody's different too with one of those conversations with what you're alluding to is like, what is my specific gifting or our specific gifting? So any leader out there too, or church planner, it's like, how has God uniquely wired you? What is the vision you have? And who are the people you're reaching? Because not every model is going to work in every context.
Totally.
And so, the Chicago suburbs are different than the Bible Belt, and it's different than the West Coast. And all of those places have there's principles you can apply, but it might look a little different. For us, a little bit of like our specific vision is like, we want to produce like that community feeling church that like, we'd love to grow to the hundreds and then like pop over 20 minutes away to a different suburb and like reproduce it and just keep that network, that family, because I just feel like that's a good size to really be able to love and minister to people. And God can change that. He can give us a different vision or a different heart. And we want to reach as many people in the Chicago suburbs as we can. It's just right now that seems to be like a model that is working well around here.
Well, I love that idea of going, hey, we only want to, and I've heard of some churches that do that. Hey, when we hit blank number, that's when we start to figure out, hey, now where should we plant another one? Because we don't want to be, go from 200 to 500 in the next 2 years. We want to stay at that, whatever that number is around there, because that feels like community. And at what point does community start to disappear, and at one point can people slip in and slip out without anybody noticing them or having a conversation? I don't know what the number is, but I like that perspective.
I think too, like we've heard people use the analogy too of like, as a pastor, you're a shepherd, like that's biblical, but making sure that like you always have the ability for people to be shepherded and not just feel like they're part of a ranch. Like, because a rancher is different than a shepherd. That's like, there's a whole system and all those things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I like growth. I like scale. Some of our best friends are leaders of large churches. And like, but in those, the healthiest ones still have the ability where people still have a shepherd. Even if it's not like the leaders, like there's people there who are doing that well. So I think as long as you can care for people well, it doesn't really matter what size you are.
I love that analogy.
You mentioned earlier that there's a lot of young professionals, maybe young families. I don't know kind of exactly the demographic you've got in mind that are in Elgin these days. Have you noticed that you've been a church plant now for what, 6 years?
Five.
Like
5 and a half.
Have you noticed that shifting over time, and has that shifted at all, sort of, I don't know, the way that you approach the ministry, the questions that are being asked, just sort of the dynamic of the church with a lot of younger people that are coming in that, I think we were talking earlier about more established churches that maybe have older congregations. I was just at a church where the guy I was talking to was probably in his 60s, 70s. He had gone to Sunday school in the same building or the room we were standing in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like just this longevity that you have in some context. But like, how has that looked for you guys, and what sort of, I don't know, impact has that had on the way you're doing ministry?
Yeah, so we kind of set out to reach that demographic in our city. For us as church planners, if we're trying to reach everyone, I think we'll reach no one. So we're really specific about, like, we want to reach young adults, young families. And so we do tailor a lot of our services and our language towards them. But in doing that, we knew that if there's a church that's thriving with young people, their parents and the grandparents will want to be a part of it because they want to see their kids thriving and in church.
Totally.
So we are growing in the parent and grandparent demographic. But we are intentional about creating a space on Sunday mornings that is tailored towards the young adult and the young family. So we keep our services short. We have an amazing kids ministry. We have 3 kids, and so we're like, our kids have to love this church and love the kids ministry. And so that's a huge focus of ours, is to be a place where kids are thriving and being discipled. And yeah, I would say the language that we use, the things that we're a part of, we're very community-oriented, city-oriented. So we aren't trying to create all of our own events and our own outreaches. We want to partner with what's already happening in our community. So we're like, hey, where are people going in our city? Like, well, our city loves the 4th of July, and there's thousands of people at the parade. And
They really do.
I don't know what. So we're always out there as a church, and our city loves like Easter and Halloween, those holidays. So we just partner with like the Elgin police and throw a huge Easter event with them, and just we're trying to just like be integrated and not ask everyone to come to us. Like, hey, we want to just go where you are.
That's so cool.
How can we help? How can we add value to what's already happening in our city? And I think that has spoken something to us, kind of that younger generation that maybe has a little bit more skepticism towards organized church, because they're like, hey, oh, you're out here, you're serving, you're a part of what's happening. And I think it just piques interest there. So
Yeah, we had somebody, just a fun story, we had somebody come who was like, oh yeah, you're that church that serves. And we're like, I mean, hopefully every church does, but the fact that like in their mind we had that reputation was like, okay, we're doing something right. Because one thing we always say is like, we would want, if our church for some reason ceased to exist, the community to feel it. Like, I feel like if no one noticed except for the people in the church, we'd probably be doing something wrong.
Right.
That's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
You go ahead.
No, you got it.
I love that perspective, and I think I also like I can't remember. It might have been the Halloween thing. I remember hearing about it for us because I think we were trying to figure out if we could go.
Yeah.
Just because my kids would love to go to a trunk or treat or whatever it was. I think it was was that also with the police department?
That is, they put on a huge amount.
But it's just like, it's so cool to be able to do that. And I think it's so important to look at it in like, we don't always have to have them come to us, is like what you said. And I love that perspective because, man, I think of, my life and all the craziness that like we just have to do to survive with 3 children and school and practices and all of this stuff. And you're like, man, we're already going to these things, man. Why would I not want to do it with my church community that's already there?
Yes.
Which I think is, super, super great.
Yeah.
Love it.
One of the things Kayla and I were reflecting on a little bit ago was just the dynamic of working together in ministry, being married and having that be like the formational part of your life, coming out of Moody and working at this church and doing like the 7 years there, 6 years at your current church, like 13 years of ministry together. Like, how has that been? And
we're still married.
Well, that's cool.
Really good.
So, and like, what are the things that you've had to be intentional about to make that something that actually is helpful and beneficial and flourishing, and not something that can actually be, a tension or a drag or just result in some more damage than good?
Right. Yeah. Well, we are loving it. Right now, we co-pastor. We started the church that way, where we're both the lead pastors, and so we are absolutely coworkers, and we do everything together. But I think for us, primarily, what's most important is our marriage. This relationship here is so much more important than what we do together, and so we're extremely intentional about keeping this relationship really healthy. But to be honest, like when we met, we felt real missional together. We felt like God kind of put us together for a mission. And so it's something that's unique to us as a couple is we've always been side by side in ministry. We just feel really called to it. And so we don't know anything else. This is like just who we are as a couple. And we're having a great time. There's absolutely been seasons that have been so hard. And the balance of the work-life balance, I don't even know if I believe in that work-life balance.
Say more about
like,
that. What do you believe in if you don't believe in work-life balance?
Oh man, I just don't think it exists.
Yeah.
We have 3 little kids. Ministry can it can be consuming. The ministry never ends, and there's always work to do. We're never done. And with church planning and also being a lead pastor, you never clock out. And so we've had to be like extremely intentional about when we're off and when we're on, and when, hey, is this a work dinner? Is this a just us dinner where we're just on a date having some fun time together? And so we've gotten we've gotten better at it, and I think it's still something we're just extremely intentional about.
Yeah, I think like Abigail was saying, for us, we had to learn that there are some things that are hard boundaries, and then there's other things that are like a bit more flexible. Because I think when we got coached and when we heard different things, everybody's like, you need really strong boundaries, and you do. Like, you can't let it be all encompassing.
Right.
But also for us, that we found like frustration in that sometimes of like, but we do just want to talk about this thing. It's going on. So like, we'd feel guilty on date night if like the church
Something
came up or like, and so for us, we're like, well, normal people talk about their jobs. Like, and I was like, we just need to know that boundary of like, what is us processing together versus like, we're just like working. And having like a little bit of a fluid line there has been really helpful for us to be like, well, like maybe let's have that conversation like during a work time versus like, let's just process that. Like it's on our mind. And just having like forgiveness and room and grace for that has been huge for us. I think also for me personally, it's helped to not think of like ministry and non-ministry. It's like, because then I feel like, well, should I be doing more? Is this even like valid or that? For me, I had to like start shifting my thinking of like everything I should be doing should be like some form of ministry. I just need to choose what is most important right now. Like ministry is also like loving and spending time with my kids. Like that is one of my primary ministries, and loving and spending time with my wife, and like also like caring for myself even. Like that is like ministry. I can't do the other parts of my work ministry if I don't do those well. And so even that like little like semantic change for me has been really helpful, because then it's not like I feel guilty for like not doing ministry right now. Like, no, I am doing ministry, and this ministry is helping me have longevity in that ministry and do it well and not be burnt out. And so, we turn off our phones at times. We're intentional about time off and vacations and things like that. And also just like anybody who's in any form of leadership, I think it's good to remind yourself, like, this can survive without you. Like, no matter the form, no matter the level, like if you're leading anything, like you need to like have a weekend off or have a week off and just remember that like, hey, it happened. Maybe it didn't happen as well, but it did survive. And like, don't have like a savior complex. Like there already is a savior. It's Jesus. And let him be the Lord and let him be the savior and just serve him well. I don't know. Rambled a little bit at the end, but
I love what you're saying. We kind of view it as a juggle, like a juggling act. So we're kind of focusing on all different things at different times. The balance is really, really, I think, impossible. I think there's just so much shame there if you think, oh, I'm like not putting enough time here and I'm not putting enough time here. And there's just such a tension there. And so the unique nature of church planning is just really integrated into like how we live, like how we are in our community, how we are with our neighbors. Like just is who we are. And so, it's a juggle. I think for us, something really practical is just we've both been intentional about having hobbies. I know that sounds silly, but
great.
like we went for a long time. I feel like we just want to have we want to have fun in
church was our hobby for a little while.
Yes, we had a little time when we didn't have any hobbies, and we're like, are we taking care of ourselves? So Dan's hobby is golf, and like I think like you've been like more into golf for the last like year, so I've seen like a huge difference in your like just joy of like just I think to be able to like put all your energy towards hitting that golf ball like gets a lot out for you.
You can't think about anything else. You're like
it's just focus, good rest, and like I joined a book club, and we bought this really old farmhouse, so I'm like doing some DIY projects. That's a great outlet for me. I love to be able to start a project and finish it because the work of ministry is never done. I'm never finished. Yep. So that has been huge for both of us. So
That's really good.
And then also like for us, it's leaning into seasons. And I know that can be a little cliche in the church world sometimes. And we often talk to other people and say, if you're always saying this is just a season, but you're always saying it, then it's not just a season.
Right.
But I'm like, so being honest, like, hey, this is a busy season. Like we're leading up to Easter, we're leading up to Christmas. But then also being like, but we actually need to change gears then afterwards and like have that be an appropriate adjustment because otherwise it's not just a season.
I sometimes like to think about it as micro seasons.
Yeah.
Like getting as granular as the day, right? Like, hey, on Monday, I'm in a season where I'm going to have to work a lot. But on Tuesday, I'm going to be in a season where I'm going to start a little bit later and I'm going to be like have a little less on my plate. And I think not thinking about it in only these really grand ways, but even thinking about it as a day-to-day kind of rhythm. And, you know, as you were saying, like all areas of your life and ministry are interconnected and you have to be taking care of all of them, personally, family, you know, work, whatever. And so to just say, I'm spending a little more time on a different aspect of my life these days, and that's okay. And I'm allowing that to just flow and not feeling like I have to have this very rigid schedule that's always exactly the same, but it can adapt and adjust and, you know, serve you versus you serving it, right?
So you're saying work hard every other day and play golf the other day.
That's what Dan is doing. He plays golf every other day. And he works every other day.
Why is golf like that hobby is just the longest hobby? Like my book club is like 2 hours. Golf is like, oh, you're gonna be gone all day. Okay. No, I'm in full support.
It is.
So
It's great.
Man, I wish somebody told me it's the only sport you can play when you're old. And so you start playing it young, man.
I know. I wish I would have played.
These are 80-year-old guys like kicking my butt.
I don't know. Bowling is up there too.
Bowling is up there.
There's some
Not as fun.
older gentlemen that are excellent bowlers. 300 every time.
love that for them.
Last time I bowled, I don't know what. Maybe I need to
hurt
get my own
yourself?
ball. My fingers hurt so bad. the next day. I was
Get
like,
fitted.
You need to get fitted, be accustomed.
my kids, oh my gosh. We were at this bowling alley, I don't know, it was like a couple months ago, and they like saw the store and they were like, we need to go get golf or bowling balls. And I'm like, guys, we're not getting bowling balls. This is ridiculous. So anyways,
You're stifling their dreams of being future bowlers, kids.
Like, Dad, I love these shoes. I was like, no, you do not. I promise you do not want these shoes, and you will not be able to wear them anywhere but right here.
Right.
So anyways, I love the hobby thing. You mentioned a couple times, like in the coaching that you guys had leading up to planting a church. Like, tell us a little bit like about what that was like. And people say like you can't like train to go into ministry. Like you can't do it nobody can teach you how to do it exactly. And the coaching or the mentorship versus actually doing it can be very similar or very different. And like, what was that like for you guys? And then like, how did that lead you? Because you also mentioned that you're now doing that for other churches and other leaders who are looking to, plant a church.
Yeah, we're part of the Church Multiplication Network, CMN. So there's many networks out there for planting a church. We'll shamelessly plug like ours. It's the best. We love it.
Love them.
And one reason we do love them so much is that they teach principles and then let you know this does have to be like applied to your context. We're not giving you a playbook. This isn't like go run the play, do it exactly like this, but figure it out. And so the way they do it is they host like a few day event where they have facilitators. Abigail's a facilitator who like will teach on a topic, and then they have table coaches And so what they do ahead of time is they screen the planters coming in to figure out their context, kind of what their vision is, and they match them up with people who are planters who like are in it recently, and put them in the same context. So like,
so cool.
if I'm coaching, I'm going to have a few other people who are like in a suburb somewhere who have like a similar dream, so that I can be like, all right, now based on what they just said, let's talk about what that will look like for you. And you're only with 2 to 3 plants at a time. So it's a lot of one-on-one time. And then the other thing is like building relationships. Like for us, having other friends who are in similar stages of ministry and a couple steps ahead to constantly talk to has been so life-giving and really helpful.
Yeah, I don't know how you can church plant alone. Like we have so many people in our corner who are like cheering us on. And so the training that we got, but really the relationships that we have with other planters around the nation has been huge for us. Someone to call to say like, hey, you're a few years ahead of us. Like, what did you do? What are your ideas? And so that's been absolutely huge for us. And I mean, we learned so much in our training, like there's so many aspects of starting something from nothing. So like, how do you build a budget? How do you build a team? Like, who do you hire first? What about like, what do you look for in a location? Like all of the things. And so it's an honor for us to be able to kind of give back in that way and coach and train those who are have a dream in their hearts, like just like we did, to be able to do the thing God is calling them to do. And so if someone is like about to plant a church without a tribe, I would just say find a tribe, find people who you can just do it with, because I think there's power there, and there's wisdom there as well, just to be able to ask people the hard questions when you get there, because church planting is the hardest thing we have ever done. Also the best thing. And so you need people, you need friends, you need people who are wiser than you to tell you.
CMN is a amazing network and have just a handful of connections with people there. And it's the resource that can provide to a church to just go, hey, here's where to start as the most basic grounds of, just like you're saying, like, how do we do a budget? Where do we even, start to look for a building? What are the things we need to look for? All of those super important aspects that can be like life-sucking and going like, how the heck do we even start to do that? And I love the idea that you guys are saying too of, and we've said in other episodes, of like the community that we have in our own context and ministry, and the people and the relationships that I know in churches all became, and all started from, I don't know, I met you at some conference and your church was in a similar stage, or you were 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, and I'm looking to you for guidance or questions. And then over time, those people call you when they need help, or you do the same. And then the people, now below you, that now you're 2, 3 steps ahead of them, are calling you and you're going, hey, how did you do that? Because we're in a very similar boat. And I remember hearing you talk about that when we were at, whatever, network conference or whatever that looks like. So I think like building relationships in that tribe of people is like, man, like that's how churches, I think, continue to survive all over the country.
Yeah. Well, speaking of those people, we have people listening here that are, worship leaders or production people, creatives, pastors, all these different people involved in making Sundays happen, like you guys are. And as you think about people that are kind of in the trenches, day in, day out, making Sundays happen, like what are some words of encouragement that you just want to leave them with, as far as things that you've been learning, or things that have gotten you through to the season you're in now that maybe were really meaningful when you were in a tough spot, but something that just would be a blessing to those listening today?
I love that. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's listening, that's serving the church week in and week out. Like, I love the name of this podcast, Sunday's Coming, because isn't that the realest? When you're in the the week to week rhythm of serving the church, on staff at a church, in leadership at a church, Sunday is always coming. And so there is a weight there. And I just want to say thank you for giving time and attention to helping people find Jesus. Like, what is more important than that? And so if someone's listening and they're just in a place of discouragement, burnout, or maybe they just lost a little bit of connection with their why, I would say, to rediscover the reason that it is that you do what you do. Whenever I start to feel a lack of energy or passion towards what I'm doing, I need to get with Jesus and remember why it is that I'm doing what I'm doing. Because as soon as you lose your why, I think burnout's following quickly after. And so connect your why to what you're doing and harvest stories so that when you have those moments that you can look back and see stories of like what God's done. So like we do that. We have a Slack channel where we are always putting stories of what's happened. This person was met with Jesus and this person got free from this. And then when we have those tough days, we can look at those stories and remember, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm showing up. This is why it matters. And so I think that's super important.
I love that.
Yeah, I think connecting to the why is the most important thing. Another thing I would add is that what you're doing is valuable, but you are more valuable than just what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like what you're doing really matters, but like God loves you even if you weren't doing that.
Yeah.
And like having your identity separated from what you do, especially in ministry, is so important.
Totally.
And I think that's not a one-time thing. That's like an ongoing evaluation of, do I feel that like affirmation and affection and all of that from the Father outside of what I'm doing. And so just making sure like, hey, if you're feeling discouraged or if you're feeling burnt out, connect it to the why, but also remember that like God loves you even if you weren't doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my encouragement.
I love that because I think so many, myself included, have been in that seat of just going like, this is the only thing I know how to do. And if that were to go away, what is left? And that's a dangerous spot to be when you have all of your identity tied up into your job, or both honestly inside ministry or outside of ministry.
Right.
Because when that goes away, your whole world can come crashing down for no reason. But the encouragement of going, man, like God is still going to love you regardless of what you're doing. Because I don't know what the stats are, and I'm sure that somebody has them somewhere of like the number of church plants that are started versus like actually make it X number of years. Right. And that is everybody's got to start somewhere, and building that foundation is challenging. And I've loved hearing just both of your stories and hearing about, Hope Culture and the work you guys are doing in that community with people and young families. And I think it's awesome. So thank you for doing that, and continue to resource other churches who can, continue to do that in their own, context as well.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah. It's been fun to hang out.
Yeah. Appreciate you sharing your story and all the, it's cool to hear all the different stories and conversations that we have on this podcast. Every single one has, nuggets of wisdom and takeaway and challenge that are applicable, not just in your context in Elgin, but wherever people find themselves. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, my gosh.
Fun.
Absolutely. Well, for anybody listening, thanks for tuning in. If you're around the Chicagoland area and would love to check out Hope Culture, where could they find you guys or get connected with you guys if anybody want to reach out?
Well, we're everywhere. We're on Instagram, Hope Culture Church. Our website is hopeculture.church. You can find Dan and I as well on Instagram. And then we meet at the Center of Elgin every Sunday morning. So we'd love to have you join us. But we're easy to find.
That's awesome. Man, well, thank you guys again. And until next time, we'll see you guys next week.